Welcome to the most forward-thinking, inspirational podcast in this reality. The show designed to challenge everything we've been taught. If you've ever felt there had to be more to life, more to existence, then you're listening to the right podcast. Time to open your mind and dive in. This is the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast.
And here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast. It's been a minute since we've recorded. It's been a wild summer. It's been a lot of fun. I've had the blessing and opportunity to speak with a lot of fantastic people, both on the show and in real life. I've got some real good world experience and some stuff that I like to bring to the table. I like to bring new ideas, new concepts, new things to the table. There's this massive trend right now. I don't want to say trend, but it's more like an awakening. It's more of a moment, a movement, an ideology, an awareness, a culling of everything impure. You're seeing a massive movement now where people are getting their breast implants removed. They're getting tattoos removed. They're hyper focused on what they're eating, what they're putting in their body, what they're allowing into their mind, body, and soul. I did a podcast a while ago with an individual who had her implants removed, and I thought it was a fantastic episode. I thought it was a fantastic topic, and I just so happened to have with me today another beautiful woman who's done some pretty amazing things in every field she's ever entered, and this time she's decided to have her breast implants removed, and it's such an empowering position, statement, thing, opportunity that I feel that everybody should have at least heard the story as to why she's doing it, why other people are maybe doing it, but primarily why Heather has decided to have them put in and have them put out, because it's all mindset, it's all perception, and it's all fascinating. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Heather Kehoe.
Well, thank you for that intro, and thanks for having me on the show. I'm super excited.
It's weird that this is your first time on the show because I have such an affinity for you. But you have just you've started your podcast. You're on episode 30 or 40 now, and you're knocking it out of the park. Ladies and gentlemen, you absolutely must check out Heather's podcast. When we're done here, we'll have all the links and everything to it. But I adore this woman, and I'm so excited to hear your version of this story, where it all came about, and
yeah.
I think let's start with your life before implants. What was going on in your world that was like, hey, these are the things that I think I should, in your words, where were we? What was going on?
It's so funny because when I think about it, I'm like, was that me? It seems so like, obviously, yes, it was me, but I was such a different person than what I am now. And obviously I believe that everything and everyone, it's like a reason, season, and lifetime. So where I was at that time, how do I describe myself? I would say I presented myself as a real, like, tough bitch. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like my outer definitely didn't match my inner. My outer was super tough. And the inside was really, really insecure. And that was from, shit I didn't deal with in my teenage years and whatnot. I was obsessed with fitness, being as tiny as I possibly could be. And just on the total, like, hustle, grind, hustle, like chase. I was in a marriage that at that time, I still thought it was okay. I guess I didn't know any different, right? I just thought, is this how it's supposed to be? And
this is marriage.
Yeah, I guess this is it. Why do people do it? No.
This doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And it was, we had 2 kids, and it was, my youngest daughter was oh, she was 2. And I just, you know what, after I was like, I love everything about my body, but my breasts, like I was just like, if I get them, that is it. Like then I'm going to be happy. Right.
Right.
Then that's just gonna be the icing on the cake.
Mhm.
And I went ahead and I got them. And I have to say, like, I love them. And nobody could have talked me out of getting them. I was like, I'm getting them. I love them. I'm going to like parade around with them. And at that time, though, it was so different. It was just like a different world with health and everything, because I remember going in for the consultation and everything. And it's like, you know, they go over the risks only of the anesthetic, like the actual surgery. So there was nothing at all about the implants. Nothing. No, they're great. They're safe. They're nothing. And, you know, at that time, I was like, yeah, cool. I think even if they would have told me, hey, these are like full of, they're going to leach heavy metal into you, and, you know, you're putting like something toxic into your body, still, I would have got them, because that was my frame of mind, right? That was the mindset.
I also think at that time too, it was the frame of society.
For sure.
And
for
yeah,
sure.
when you're not, you know, I mean, way back then, we don't think about certain things until you sort of, you know, enter into your quote unquote awakening.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think about these things, and society's everywhere doing all these things. And, you know, there was, I remember, you know, from almost like, I want to say like mid 90s to easily 2010, everything was augmentation. Bigger is better, right? And that was on TV and everywhere.
Yeah, and I got them in 2008.
Right.
So it was right in there with the True Religion jeans and big boobs.
Yes, that's right. Oh man, that's priceless. But yeah, so I mean, even on that same lineage, that's at least 8 years of your life, formidable years of your life, where if you're already in an insecure mindset, and you're seeing on television and everywhere that big boobs is the thing, that's one of those things. Is like, maybe this is what's missing. Maybe this is what I need to feel complete.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? Knowing what I know now, I truly believe that now there was shit I had needed to deal with, right? And you know, I did, but I also truly believe that a lot of the health issues that I had were directly linked to the implants. And of course, that only came out when I started working with an integrated medical doctor, because, you know, even now when you talk about breast implant illness, there's some doctors that are like, that's not real. That's just all in your head. You're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, if for any woman who's listening to this, you know, I would say, do your research. I would never, ever talk anybody out of getting them. But when I tell my story, and, you know, we'll get into it more, that's my story. And it's, if something doesn't feel right in your body and you can't get answers and nothing else is, you know, you're getting testing and thing, and you have implants, definitely explore that, because it could 100% be the issue that is causing everything.
It's a huge point right there, because I mean, if you look at this, and this is something that hasn't been delved into very much, but I mean, you and I have had many a conversation about how everything's trying to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it pretty much is. And yeah. it's a funny statement too, because remember saying vaccine injuries? I remember, you know, and this is a perfect little rapid microcosm, because vaccine injuries, stating the term, just saying vaccine injuries, had most of society calling you a tinfoil hat lunatic. It also, just for the kick, got you banned or shadow banned on most social media if you brought that up.
Yeah.
And why would they silence you? So vaccine injuries. And now today, there's a government website dedicated to those who have suffered vaccine injuries. And that's what I'm saying. This is a microcosm. This is This is something that happened in our reality over the course of 4 years, where you were an asshole if you said vaccine injuries,
For sure.
now they're documenting them on the government website.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
The macrocosm of that is breast implants,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously a million other things. But obviously, right now we're talking about implants. So if you mentioned, like you said, implant injuries, the doctors would call you crazy. You were wearing a tinfoil hat and you were laughed out of the building.
Mm-hmm.
But you're seeing it more and more and more.
Yeah.
And nobody's really talking about it.
Yeah.
And you got to wonder why. Again, it comes back down to, if you want to wear a tinfoil hat, it comes back down to everything that they're doing to us seems to be an experiment.
For sure.
Let's see what happens if we put these things into people's chests.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but the same people that are or the same machine that's happy with doing the implants was the very machine that gave you the idea that you weren't good enough without them in the first place.
Right.
And people don't want to talk about the media in this scenario. They don't want to talk about the fact that the influence was intentionally put everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating time. So let's track back to, like, I want the whole representation for the audience, and just because it's such a fascinating story.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to a couple of days after you had them installed, the old installation, and then like a couple of weeks to a year after you've had them installed. How did that first year play out for you?
Yeah. So it was funny because when, like, and of course it was in the day where everybody was getting them. I felt like, right. Like I had a few friends that got them. We all kind of had them within the, within a span of like 6 months. And I remember them saying to me, okay, do not look at them for the first like 2 weeks. Well, of course you're going to look at them whenever anybody says don't, plus you're showering. Right. And I was horrified. Okay. Like they were up here. I was like, oh my God. And it was like a box. And I remember like crying probably day 3. It was the worst. It was like all the pain meds were out. And I was like, why did I do this? It was almost like they call it surgery remorse, right? Or like, when you make a change to your body and you almost go through this remorse, even though I was telling myself, nope, this is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I wanted. And you make up excuses, right? Like, oh, well, it's just my body is healing and I've got all these emotions and, it'll be better and I'm going to look great. And, I can buy all these clothes because at this time, again, I was majorly embedded into the third dimension world, right? Like it was brand name this, brand name that, be at every event, socialize with, all these people that you didn't really care about. They didn't care about you, but you had to be seen, right? So then I was like, oh man, now I'm going to fit all these clothes and it is going to be like just the best thing ever. Mm-hmm. And so I start, get back to like normal living and like, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like very good. And, they're big. I remember my sister and my dad, they're like, whoa. And I'm like, I didn't think they were that big, but fuck, they were big. When I think back. And so about a year after.
What was the jump? Like you went from,
oh God, I was like an A to, it was like a double D for sure.
Yeah. So like in the consult, you're like, go big or go home.
Well, and you know what? I was like, I don't want to look like a porn star, but I also want to look like I have boobs. Right. So they were 300 cc's where people are like, that's not that much. And I'm like, okay, but you have to realize at that time I was like super tiny. Remember when we were talking about, sizes, right? And I was like, I'm a size 26 and you're like, people want to be a 0. I'm like, that was my waist. Okay. I was tiny. So at that, like for proportion wise, I mean, I was like the Motley Crue song, Girls, 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 right? That's how I was. It was like the big boobs, the tiny waist, the tight ass. Like I was rocking it. And so, yeah, I was feeling like this is good. This is awesome. And again, I'm married. I've got 2 kids, and it's so funny. I remember my one daughter, she was about 6 at that time. And we were in the bathroom one day, and she kind of like looked at me, and then she looked again because she was like, whoa, mom, like your boobs are huge. Right. And for a kid, I'm thinking that must have scarred her for life. She's 21 now. And I'm like, God, I'm going to see her in 2 days. I'm going to ask her, I'm like, do you remember that? Because like, did that traumatize you? But about a year into it, I started having some really bizarre side effects. And I mean, I was young, like I was in my 30s and like 34, 35. I started losing massive amounts of hair. Like I go in the shower and just clumps of hair would come out. And again, the way that I thought, I'm like, whatever, it's just tired, it's hormones, stress. And I started what I know now as anxiety. I was having really crazy thoughts going through my head.
Right.
Ton of thoughts about like massive anxiety, like fear of my kids dying, right? Fear of like just, and I mean, we all have these concerns, like obviously, as parents, like that's our biggest fear, but they were they weren't rational.
No,
right?
no.
It was like, when I think back now, I'm like, Jesus, like, and it just came out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere. And again, I was in that.
Did you say this was a year after?
This is about a year after.
Yeah.
So this was 2009. And, again, I just kind of went on with my life. And I was working, like I had a home-based business. It was doing extremely well. And I was to the point that I was I feel like running on adrenaline. And I was losing my hair. I was having like these massive anxiety attacks. Then I started almost hallucinating. And I remember driving I'd be driving, especially at night, and I would be passing a car and I would veer off into the shoulder because I would think they were coming right at me. Like that's, and I would shake it off being like, hey, summing it up to like tired, stress, I've got little kids, all this. And it started getting worse and worse. And I started having really bad nightmares. And then it was probably about January of 2010. So this is like basically 2 years after I had the implants. I remember waking up from like a dead sleep and not being able to breathe and thinking like I was having a heart attack. And I remember saying to my husband at this time, here's how I feel. I cannot breathe. If I pass out, like this is how I'm feeling. And now I know that was a panic attack.
Wow.
But at that time, I didn't know what a panic attack was.
Yeah.
And, people say to me, well, what triggered you? What was going on? And I'm like, nothing. Like it was just, now I know it was a whole bunch of things, including the fact that I was living this super fake life. But at that time, there was nothing that stuck out because I just thought, it's that running a business, like I'm, very embedded in the hustle culture. And then the panic attacks started getting more frequent. And then my entire world came crashing down in May of 2010.
Now, that's a whole other story, and we'll touch on it a little bit here.
Yeah.
And this is basically your this is your origin story, of how you became who you are now.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating story. But if you were to say now, sort of looking back on that and looking back on everything, and just, none of us are doctors here, but I'm just saying, in your own personal opinion, how much, like, what percentage would you give the augmentation as a contributing factor to
80, 100%, at least 80. And so 2010 came and got, right? And then you remember I got thyroid cancer.
Oh.
Right? 2015, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer and had 2 surgeries. And again, now at that time, I was already changing mindset things. I had worked through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like I'd worked through a lot of like traumas that I had unhealed. And it was like, where is this shit coming from? Right now it was thyroid cancer. And since I've been doing so much research, obviously, on breast implant illness, and how it came to be is working with Dr. Shannon Pierce, who is like an amazing integrated medical doctor. Is, we're running all these tests for inflammation. My body was so inflamed, and I had like mold in my body, and we could not figure this out. We were running mold tests in my house. They were all coming back normal. And she's like, you have implants, right? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, have you considered removing them? Because they're breast implant illness. And here are all the symptoms, right? And what women have experienced after they got implants. And it was like depression, anxiety, panic attacks, loss of hair, hormonal issues, massive thyroid issues, like all of this. And I was like, holy shit. Okay. Yeah. I need to get them out. Because at that time too, I was feeling like I had outgrown them. I was starting to hate them. I was hating everything that they stood for and every reason why I had actually got them, because every reason why I got them was nothing like the person I am today.
It was third dimensional choices.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'd look in the mirror, I put on clothes and I'm like, oh my God, I hate them. I want them gone.
Right.
I just want them gone. And I went from wearing, like, loving them and feeling like I made, to just like wanting always to wear baggy, flowy clothes. Right. And knowing, like, I always subconsciously knew that is when everything started. But I was in denial for a long time. Right. I'm like, I paid like $8,000 for these things. Right. I'm going to love them forever.
They can't be killing me. They're my friends.
Yeah. And, at that time too, I was trusting everything the doctors in I call the normal air quotes, medical system, right? Like, to me, at that point when I got them, everything else was woo-woo, right? Oh, naturopathic. Oh, integrated med. What?
Yeah.
Like, So, yeah, it was like thinking back and knowing what I know now, 100%, I would say for sure 80 to 85%.
I think that's wild. I would never have made that large of an assumption, but then when you ran the list off of things that are contributing factors to this, it's like, first off, it's a decision based in insecurity and vanity, and I don't mean to shame anybody when I say that. That's why we get augmented. So it's like they're already preying on somebody who's moderately insecure, and it's a fascinating thing. But there's no finger pointing when I say that, because if you polled 100 men and said, hey, would you like a bigger penis?
You're like, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what size they've got. The answer is yes. I would like, as long as
Yeah.
there's no harm, no foul, just go ahead and add a few inches.
Mhm.
Right, go right
Mhm.
ahead. Right. You ask a million women about penis size, and they're going to say, everyone's got a different story because every body is different. Some girls,
Yeah.
want this, want that. Every man has watched porn, and they feel inadequate.
Mhm.
So it's this societal test, this
Totally.
this madness, and then what? Even to the point where nobody talks about this, what we're talking about right now. Nobody talks about
Mhm.
fucking hair loss and thyroid cancer and residual effects to having these things
Mm.
put in.
Well, and just the inflammation, right, in your body. And because here's the thing, when you think about it, right, you are putting something foreign into your body. Your body's natural reaction is to try to get rid of it, right? It's like when you get a splinter, what does your body do? It forces it out.
Yeah.
So, with implants, and it doesn't matter if it's like a pacemaker, a rod in your leg, right? It's the thing with that, these were silicone bags, right? And they absorb into your body. If they've been tested that there's heavy metals that have leaked into your body. Now you form a capsule around anything foreign in your body to help protect. But still it's like a constant fight in your body.
Well, if you think about this, you're talking about rods and pacemakers.
Mm-hmm.
I know people have had pacemaker issues. It's a little bit more rare, but a pacemaker is a firm item that goes in. The
Mm-hmm.
callus gets built around it and it stays there. The
Yeah.
metal bar that you put in your leg is a firm bar. The
Yes.
callus gets built around it and it stays there.
Yeah.
Your implant is a foreign object that goes
Yeah.
into your body. A callus is built, therefore there's an item being built around the sac.
Yeah.
And it gets squeezed and bent and twisted and moved and manipulated. So your boob is constantly moving. So that callus is constantly forming and breaking and forming and breaking and forming and breaking.
Yeah.
Your body is constantly sending white blood cells to this thing to fight it, to get it to do, to get it to, who knows? The body just wants it out, like you said.
Yeah.
And when you're constantly moving it, you're creating a buildup for sure.
Yeah.
So it's wild. It's wild to think of the idea of this. And I don't know.
Well, and the first time I had actually ever heard of anybody removing their implants was about 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And a girlfriend of mine, she started having all these just bizarre symptoms, unexplainable. Of course, she'd go for air quotes blood work, which is a joke. It is a joke here in Canada. You're everything. Oh, you're normal. It's such a tiny amount of blood work. It is just the basic, the most minimal. It doesn't tell you really anything. So she started investigating more and she started working with different doctors. And she told me about breast implant illness. And at this time, I didn't want to hear anything about it because this was still 7 years ago. And I'm like, I think you're nuts. Like, whatever. Anyway, she got them removed. She was like a new person. The way she looked, her skin, her eyes, her health issues all cleared up. So that was the very, very first time. And then,
did you take note of it after she started looking better, feeling better, and acting better? Did you go from screw you to maybe?
No, not really, because at that time I was still not really. I mean, I was working towards where I am now, but I still wasn't there.
Right.
I was still kind of, and I was still like, there's no way my implants caused that. It's got to be something else.
Yeah.
So it was until probably 2 years ago, honestly, when I started just seeing on social media more and more women talking about breast implant illness, having their implants removed, talking about their symptoms, how they felt after. And I'm like, okay, you know what? This might, I got to investigate this a little bit.
Right.
And that's when I started working with Dr. Pierce. And she's a huge, huge advocate for women and women's hormones. And I learned so much about inflammation and how our body works. And, I started reaching out to these women on social media and being like, hey, tell me about your journey. And, how did you feel after? And the difference was night and day,
Right.
like night and day. And I always, the disclaimer here, if you are happy with your implants and you are not having any issues and you are loving them, by all means, you need to do what's right for you. Mm-hmm. For me, I always say, I knew, like intuitively knew that's what it was. I just didn't want to accept it. And then when I did, I was like, they need to go now.
Right.
They need to leave my body now. And even my healing from the surgery, like compared to when I got them and any other surgeries, because I'd had a C-section. I had also, now 2 years ago, when I started down this journey, I was going to get them removed. And I went into the doctor. Instead, I had a lift. He's like, well, the implants are good. And, there's no issue. And I wasn't 100% at the point of removing them.
No.
So I just had a lift. Even my recovery from that surgery was a bit of a struggle.
I'll say too, in knowing you as long as I've known you, that you in the past 8 months have tripled down on your expanse of knowledge, understanding, comprehension of self, awareness, and surrounding. So people, anyone could say, well, how could you have had these thoughts and then not done something about it? Your self awareness and situational awareness, third dimensional, fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional shift has hit hyperdrive in the past 5 to 8 months, and that to me is an amazing thing to witness from my perspective.
Yeah.
And without the implants, I don't think it would have happened. And so we say everything happens for a reason.
Totally.
But
totally.
yeah, so that's why I say, like 2 years ago, why would you go in for removal surgery and come out with a lift or bigger boobs or whatever it is,
Yeah, and I wasn't ready, and I remember this recovery was so different. Like when I woke up, like I remember everything from this surgery. And like, I remember walking into the OR. I remember the exact number of breaths I took before I was out. I remember waking up. And when I woke up this time, I woke up and I was so coherent. All the other times it'd wake up and I'd fall back asleep and I was like, I don't remember anything. Even the nurses were like, whoa, you are like doing so good. You look so good. You are doing so good. And I remember my conversations with them. Like I could have walked out of there. They wouldn't let me. They put me in a wheelchair because that was protocol. And my 16-year-old was here. She's like, I'm going to stay with you, Mom, for 3 days and make sure you're okay. And she's like, do you need this? Do you need that? And I'm like, no, I'm like, good. Right. And I had no pain. I took a couple Tylenol and Advil. But it was like, I remember coming home that day from the surgery and taking a picture of myself and comparing it to that morning when I left for the surgery. And I was like, holy shit. Like I look, my color of my skin was totally different. And that was the same day. And then it just progressively got better.
It's like your body was relieved.
Thanking me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Heather. And we're going to make recovery like really awesome for you. And it was.
Yeah, I remember you basically, your surgery was in the morning and you were closing a deal in the afternoon. Wasn't that isn't that how it played out?
No, I actually, I actually turned over my business to a colleague for a couple of days, but yeah, of course, you know what? It's like just the way real estate works. It's like go in for surgery. Everybody wants to write houses. I think I think Eric helped me out with, oh God, I think we had 5 deals happen between Tuesday to Friday.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
that was the week you were in.
yeah, but you know what? I was so like there was no grogginess. It was so different. Like it was just it was amazing. It was just the clarity, the brain fog, right? The brain fog was it was like it was cleared up immediately.
So you had, you know, the physical obviously was a change, and we'll touch on that in a second too. But the 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 mindset. So remember when you first got them in, and you were super proud, and it was like it was a Barbie girl summer. You know,
Mhm.
how did you? What if you were to write or make note of the comparisons between how you felt after they were in and how you felt after they were out when it comes down to how you presented yourself to the world, the
Mhm.
mindset behind that. How would you compare the two, or what would you say about the two, similarities, differences, that sort of thing?
Mhm. So when I think back to when I got them, even though I was super excited, I was still like, it was a little bit like shameful, right? Like, oh, I had to get these. And I don't really want to parade myself around like I just got these boobs and look at me. That's how I felt back then.
Mhm.
When I had them removed, I had numerous people, including my surgeon, say, okay, just so you know, you're going to be very flat after. It is going to be shocking. And so I was mentally prepared for it, like to me, to be like a 12-year-old boy, basically. Like,
Mhm.
and I remember looking at him and saying, I'm totally fine with it. I'm like, if I never wore a bra, like, or, it's not like you ever have to wear a bra, but um, if I'm in sports bras or whatever, I'm fine. I'm totally good. And I remember looking, and now it's been like over a month, and I'm like, I like them better than what the last few years were with them. And they're not, I'm not flat. I actually have like, they're pretty good.
Mhm.
And I look and I'm like, wow, okay, you know what? Like, I am super proud to like I wasn't at all like, oh my God, now I'm flat and I'm not a woman. And I'm like, hell, you know what? I had these implants removed. I feel amazing. And I can't wait to like go out and buy clothes. And because now all my, everything's so baggy,
Mm.
right? And you don't realize like even the inflammation and the difference. And when I started being really open about it, I started having women reach out to me being like, oh my gosh, you're so brave for doing that. And I'm like, okay, that makes me sad. That makes me sad that society is still thinking that having them removed is you being really brave.
Yeah.
And yeah, I sat with that for a long time. And I was like, God, this is, there's so much pressure on women to look a certain way. And I definitely got caught up in that. I definitely did. Um, and now it's not like, hey, I roll out of bed in my pajama pants and go, run around town, but I'm not so obsessed with that exterior just because I've done so much work and my confidence in myself has changed so much.
Prior to the removal or because of the removal?
Because of the removal.
Well, both really, but yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
both.
yeah.
You both for sure. For
But yeah,
sure.
that was what I was alluding to, because and that's one
Mm-hmm.
of those things. It's like they say it's brave that you had them removed, but it would have been brave, or not brave. It would have been foolish to keep them in. If you're doing something that you don't like anymore,
Yeah.
why would you keep doing it?
Yeah. And it was so wild because I read so many. I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
with anything. And I remember going on these forums and reading these groups of women who have had them removed and some being like, "Oh my God, my husband is so mad at me and my boyfriend like left me." And I was like, fuck.
What forums are you on where the husband's mad and the boyfriend's gone? The same lady? I said, what forums are you on where her husband's mad and the boyfriend's gone?
These breast implant illness
I've lost everyone. My boyfriend
support groups or whatever, right? And I was like, holy shit. So, some women, and I'm like, but that was me back then, because a lot of why I got them was partially, I'd say, for him at that time,
right,
partially for me, which was so messed up. But
right,
that was my mindset at that time. That was my insecurities. And now, with my husband now, because obviously I'm remarried, he was like, Heather, whatever. You need to do what you need to do. You need to feel good. And it doesn't matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I couldn't imagine being with someone who's like, you get them removed, like, I'm out.
We're done.
I'm like, oh, see ya. There's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out.
And that's the thing. But those forums are cognizant and representative of society.
Oh,
and
it's entertaining terrible and sad at the same time, right? Because you're reading through and it's like, man, I couldn't imagine. Like, I couldn't imagine.
The poster is right or wrong, if they're posting it and they feel it, they're creating it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is obviously, manifestation 101.
Yeah.
But it's that insecurity. It's that insecurity in self that says I'm valued only based on the lumps on my chest.
Yeah.
It's I think society, we've got all these social justice warriors, do a better job, do better.
Yeah.
Right. I think society, that was the ladies and gentlemen that can't watch this. That was a perfect eye roll from Heather right there. But, that
what is better?
Yeah, exactly. Do better.
Yeah.
But like, if society did better, and here's another thing too, just since we're on that topic, any single person on social media, and this goes out to my audience who's listened to me, bitch about this shit. Anyone who chirps you on social media, don't take any of their shit seriously. There isn't a single person, quote unquote, doing better than you that's going to come down and rip on you. Right?
Totally.
Anyone that wants to be a social justice warrior or a keyboard warrior online, they're just tiny little cowards. And if you've caught their attention and irked them, great.
Yeah.
I had a lady the other day abandon following our Instagram, and she was one of those heroes that left a note like, I am forever.
Oh yeah, they got to let you know. They got to let you know. Yeah. Because you're like, who are you?
what I loved about that though is before I even had a chance to like make a comment, another one of the fans of the page saw the comment and just ripped her apart, like not like evilly, but like just made a proper observation, which was like coming to my defense. And I thought, that's fantastic. Like, This is the community that we're at here now. Yeah. But yeah, I digress. Back to what we were talking about, your scenario, your situation, and the women that are involved in that, and not being able to move forward with that. There has to be, and this is something that's not talked about. I would think that anyone who's contemplating getting removal would superficially worry about what others would think. But if you're contemplating getting removal, you already feel something's wrong. You already feel something's off, and you don't want it in there, which means that your judgment will be skewed, especially if you're coming from, I don't want to say a position of weakness, but certainly somebody who lacks a little bit of confidence, and has them in. I think that, and maybe if you lack a little bit of confidence, the partner that you've chosen isn't quite appropriate for you as well. Totally. And some other decisions probably weren't the best ones for you, but you're aware of that on a personal level. This isn't an attack on anybody. This is just something for the listener to think through.
Yeah.
And then having them in there, knowing the inflammation it's causing, the pain it's causing, the actual mess that it's causing inside your body. I think that that's also changing their ability to make a proper or cognitive beneficial decision for themselves. And like you said, I'm not saying take them out. I'm not saying put them in. I'm just saying.
And I'm not saying don't get them, right? Because how many, in 2008, you could not have talked me out of them. Like people, if they would have said they're going to do this, or, right now, here's the thing. They have to have a black box warning on them because they are linked to a specific cancer. So that has to be put on the boxes right now. There have been some also that have been recalled because they were causing, issues. If it, even if there were those warnings back then, I don't know. I would have probably still gotten them.
I'm going to do something just based on the fact that, what we're talking about and the medical industry and the way things work. So we'll just do one quick second here.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. If you're going to soundbite any of this podcast, you must soundbite it in its entirety for consistency and context.
There we go. Because you just made a comment that could have looked bad against the medical industry.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God.
Right. Somebody just soundbites this: breast implants cause cancer. Oh, God, we're getting sued. Well, no, you can't, because there's context involved now, too. And there's a disclaimer. So suck it.
Yeah. And you know what? It's it's the informed consent. There's definitely more informed consent right now for implants than there was when I got them, right? When I got them, it was, oh yeah, they're safe, they're this, they're that. And that's all they knew back then.
What if they didn't?
Well, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and you know how I feel, right? It's like, give the product to make them sick and then give them the solution.
Yeah. And think about this. Think about your mindset before you got them done. And this is let's just venture down the rabbit hole, because this is what we do on the show.
Yeah.
Think about your mindset before you had them done. You're already susceptible to certain things. Now think about the doctors knowing quasi what the results are going to be after they put them in. Mm-hmm. Now think about all the meds they can now sell you or prescribe to you, because in Canada they just give them to you, but there's anything that's free, you're the lab rat. So Canada, I don't trust the medical system, period. And COVID really made that abundant. It's not like this one vaccine was a fluke accident. It's like they really showed their hand as to what everything is.
Yeah.
So, and this is why I look back on this and implants and think about, the amount of money they've made off trying to cure people of things that they don't know what's wrong with them, quote unquote, but they do know, because the doctor's like, oh, she's got implants. Well, she's got this, and this. We can make money off this, and this, and we can do this, this, and this. Sounds nefarious. Makes me sound crazy to say it, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Oh, 100%. 100%. But what's interesting now that is not talked about, of course, but I have been quite vocal about it. When I was in for my surgery, and have the implant, and one of the nurses that had worked there, she had told me, she goes, we are seeing a lot of explants.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you're going to see a lot more.
I hope so.
And that again, I'm not on here to be like, don't get them. Implants are bad. This blah, blah, blah. It is your journey, right? This was my journey. And I say to women when they do reach out to me and they're like, okay, I have implants. I'm thinking about getting them removed. And I'm like, okay, well, what's happening? Tell me what's happening in your body. And what have you done to, for testing? Who have you dealt with? Because you need to work with somebody who's going to do deep rooted testing to find out what the root of the issue is. Now, if they've done, and that's what I did, there was testing for like food sensitivities, massive hormone testing, right? And just all these things. Even me going into menopause at like such an early age was like, whoa. I remember Dr. Shannon, when she got my hormone test, she goes, if I didn't know you, I would think you had the hormones of an 80-year-old woman. That's messed up.
Yeah.
Okay. That just doesn't happen for no reason. No. So, I say to women, you need to just do the investigation. And if everything's coming back as normal when you do the deep-rooted investigation and you have implants, I would seriously consider those as probably the culprit.
Yeah. Another thing too is like, if a woman's listening to this and they are under the weather, and I have a lot of female listeners, and I love each and every one of you guys. And the male listeners, you guys are awesome too. Everybody's pretty awesome. And those that listen to me because they want to hate on me, you guys are pretty cool too. I like y'all.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing up the engagement, you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for bringing the numbers up. Appreciate
it.
Exactly. Yeah. The idea that somebody could be sick and not understand why. It's not just implants. I mean, fibromyalgia, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not making any statements, but I know people that have fibro, and they don't understand sort of what it is. But one of the things was linked back to a faulty or a mispurposed old shoulder repair injury, and the screws had started screwing up, and so they on a completely off note, they had the shoulder re-repaired and rebuilt with newer material or whatever, and the quote unquote all the signs of fibro went away. So there's so many things that go on, and we don't think about this, and this is hopefully an eye opener to anyone that's got something going on with their body. And go, holy fuck, maybe it is the implants, maybe it's this. I hadn't even put two and two together. So I mean, this raising this awareness is something that I think that should go completely viral. I think that everybody should pay attention to their body and their symptoms. And if they're already doing research, like you said, do your own research, understand the thing. But I think that if you're already doing the research and you're already contemplating and questioning, you, above everything else, already subconsciously know that something's off and that they have to go.
Yeah. And you know what? Your body. And all I could say was, and a girlfriend of mine said it so good. She goes, they are no longer like belong in your body. Like you have outgrown them and outgrown the reason that you got them. Right. And that's how I was feeling. I was feeling like I hated them and everything that they stood for and the reasons why I got them, because I'm not the same person. Right. So I was just like, I can't wait to get them out. And I was going to wait till November. And one day I was just like, screw this. And I called, I'm like, when's the first day I can get in? Yeah. And they're like, we can get you in 2 weeks. I'm like, book it.
Let's do this.
And that's the way I am. When I decide, I'm like, I'm doing it. And I want it done. And it was the best decision for me. And I'm only like a month and a little bit in. So, I mean, and the difference in my energy, just my brain fog, like, honestly, I can't even explain it. And I can't, like, I'm so excited to see as the months go on and the days go on, the changes that are going to happen. And, but, inflammation, this is what I wish people would understand, that we're walking around in today's society, right? And most of the food that we buy is shitty, unless you can grow it or get it from like a local, producer, whatnot. Our bodies are so full of inflammation, and inflammation causes disease. It does. And the more meds you put in, they cause more inflammation, right? And it's just Band-Aids over Band-Aids over Band-Aids. And once you learn, like, you have to find the root of the issue in order to fix it, right? Or you're just Band-Aiding. And when I watch just, especially what's happened in the last few years, right? And I see these people that are like so unhealthy, right? And they're just like, well, if I'm going to jump back to the vaccine, but it's like, if I go get this, then I'm going to be protected. Meanwhile, I see them at the grocery store and their cart is full of chips and cookies and just shit, right?
I've said it on the show 1,000 times, maybe not 1,000 times, but the people that are getting vaccines are the people that have smoked cigarettes their whole lives. They're at the grocery store in a rascal, filling their carts with chips, and they're overweight and they're wearing a mask and they're shaming you. Yeah. And this is a mental state that dictates. And I know a lot of good people that like lost businesses, friends, their job, all because they didn't get vaccinated. But these people that, that are going to point at you, you can't take them into consideration with regards to natural society, because nothing is right for you, or what's going on with society isn't right for you. Like I had a girlfriend of mine was telling me that she lost her friends primarily because she didn't want to take the vax, but she was also at the very same time that this was all going down, she was attempting to get pregnant. She was doing a bunch of stuff, and her own system was like, no, it just doesn't, it's not logical. She wasn't trying to be a rebel by any means, but when her friends turned on her, like you really got to ask yourself, who was I in a lifetime where a group of friends 30 years old, 30-year long friendships that they can turn on me because I won't get vaccinated. So I say this story because this harkens back to the media and just simply the way that the media portrayed what the vaccines were and how they just brainwashed an entire, well, they didn't brainwash them on this note. They were already brainwashed. Society was already brainwashed, and they were quickly willing to go along with that.
For sure.
And some of these same people, you mentioned this before when we were talking, some of these same people have said to you, and you gave a really solid answer to this. They said to you, well, why did you get them put in the first place? Or why did you have them at all? And these are the main people, and you're going to get these questions, ladies, when you have them removed. Also, it's 2023, so I'll say men when you have them removed.
Yeah.
I don't think any men with boobs are listening to my show. Well, actually, some men with boobs are probably listening to my show, but men with implants probably aren't listening to my show.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So what's your answer to that? Why did you get them? And this isn't my question. I already know the answer and it's a great answer.
Well,
but why would you do it at all?
It's very funny. So I'm going to just pull this up here because I had that exact, and it came from a nurse. And, I said to her, she's like, how are you feeling? And she was the one who had said, we've been removing a lot lately. And, I just said how I was feeling, blah, blah, blah. And I'm really good. And she said, imagine how good you would feel if they were never done in the first place. And, my response exactly to her was, everyone needs to go on their own journey. No one could have talked me out of them in 2008. No healthcare professional ever disclosed any risks at that time, but years after is when the shitstorm happens. Sort of like other stuff that's happening in people's bodies now. And she said, yeah, you are right on that. And, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, going through a divorce. Well, why would I have married him in the first place? You could say the same shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, because at that time I was in love with him. Mm-hmm. Right. And we had, we were together for 17 years and we have 2 kids, and then we changed. I changed. Yeah. Right. So it's, when I get those questions, I'm like, I actually feel sorry for the person, because I'm like, I know their life and the shit that they have done. And I'm like, oh man, you got so much shit that you need to deal with and unhealed stuff. I'm not even going there with you.
Right.
Right. Like, you're just projecting. And I always find those people that are like, well, why would he be done it in the first place, are the ones who always will meddle in everybody else's life because they don't want to deal with their own shit.
100%. Yep. 100%.
Right. And they're not worth you getting into a disagreement or a argument with, because they do not want to hear it. And they will probably go through their whole life in denial of anything that they've done and not wanting to do the work and, heal themselves. And that's cool, because we all got to go on our own journey. Right. And, that's really, really my answer, is because at that time, it didn't matter. I was doing it.
Yeah. People often forget that, everyone's so quote unquote goal oriented that people don't quite understand that a lot of the time, or most of life, isn't about the end result. It's about the journey. No. And it's about learning what you learned on the path to what you've done.
Yeah.
And if you didn't marry your first husband, you wouldn't have a beautiful family that you have now.
Yeah.
So the marriage wasn't about staying together forever. It was about creating the 2 kids that you have.
Yeah. And you know what's so funny about that is, I can honestly say I knew 100% we were not going to be together forever. Mm-hmm. But it was, everything, again, it's the reason, season, lifetime. And there was, yes, he'll obviously be in my life for a lifetime, right? Because we have kids together. And that's fine. But you think about those exes. Well, they have nothing to do with it. They came in for a season and hopefully they taught you something.
Yeah.
And it was the same with this, right? I would not be able to help other women if I wouldn't have went through it.
And that's an amazing segue too, because I was just thinking, I know we don't have a hard stop, ladies and gentlemen. We have a relative stop coming up soon. And I did want to touch on a little bit more about who you are, because my audience doesn't know who you are. And this is your story with regards to augmentation, implants, explants. I loved it because of your strength, because of who you are. And you are, I think you're the number one realtor in all of Canada.
No,
disclaimer.
Wish. No, I don't. I actually don't wish, because you know what? I would never, ever have a life, which was
insane.
Was what happened to me when I went through massive burnout, right? And what had, again, led me into coaching. And that's the thing. Yes, I have my real estate business for 10 years and it runs like a well-oiled machine, right? My business is very based on attraction marketing, not the chasing. So I have a massive referral base, and you know what? People might think it's woo-woo, but you know what? It isn't.
It's not woo-woo. And the reason it's not woo, and I have to state that, is because you operate, and no matter what you do, you're operating with 100% integrity.
Yeah.
Which separates you from the majority of other realtors. And not like that they're unintegral and they're bad people. It's just that it's that your life has said, there's no shortcuts, there's no nothing. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. You've parlayed that into your coaching industry as well. And the women that you help are everyone's getting results left, right, and center. And that, to me, when you figured something out that works, and you have the opportunity to work with like-minded people who seek you out and who want your help and who want your guidance, you get some amazing results with all of these people. And it's a phenomenal thing to see, how well you've done in business, obviously with regards to real estate, and how well you're parlaying that into your podcast and your coaching industry, your coaching business. And again, your entire sphere of influence, because everybody still, whether they say it or not, they're watching your Instagram, they're watching your podcast, they're watching this, they're understanding, they're learning. And I mean, the amount of free content that you put out and that you create, ladies and gentlemen, if you're on TikTok, you have to follow Heather. She's hilarious. A message delivered, hilarity for sure. You're going to be entertained and you're going to learn something. And that there's no better way to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just finish that. Yeah. That stems from you being, the podcast is called the Hustle Culture Hater Club. Sorry. And the movement is the Hustle Culture Hater Club. And I know you said relative stop, but let's this ties into the augmentation. This ties into everything, because you were saying that it was the majority of your burnout, but explain a little bit about your burnout and sort of what created who you are today. Like how did that all play out?
Yeah. Well, I was super, here's the thing. If there are any real estate agents listening, the real estate industry is all about hustle, grind, be available 24/7. If you want to make it in this business, this is what you got to do. Kiss your holidays goodbye. Right. And the first couple of years, I got very embedded into that. And I was so obsessed with the amount of money I needed to make. Obsessed. And I'd be like working till all hours of the night and back in the morning and running basically on, coffee and thinking it was funny, right? Oh, I'm so busy. I'm blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, I was a single mom at that time too. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I went into this business, and this is what I always say to the women I coach. Why did you start your real estate business or your mortgage broker business or whatever you're doing? Why did you start that? Was it to work 24/7 and never see your family and, never have freedom to make your own rules? Was that? And they're all like, no. Okay, then why did you do it? It's for the opposite of all those things, right? But you're not doing it. So what's the point? What is the point? Like, you might as well quit, go back to a 9 to 5, because then at least you're done. It makes zero sense. Right. And I'm like, I was there, and I was, at the burnout stage of, I didn't like, so when somebody would call me, I'd be like, oh my God. Right. Like, I was starting to hate my business. I was missing my kids' events for like just chasing. And I'm like, I can't do this. There's got to be a better way. 100% there needs to be a better way. And the way that the industry is portrayed, and you see it on the HGTV shows, which I love a good, real estate show. But the reality is, if you do not set the boundaries and you do not get really, really clear on what it is that you want, then other people are going to take over your life. They're going to take over your schedule. They're going to take over everything. And you're going to wake up one day, 20 years down the road, and be like, I missed so many things for what?
Chasing paper.
Right? Because so many people in business, and real estate specifically, are in such a lack of mindset. They're in such a scarcity, chase mindset that they're like, oh, I got to answer the phone at midnight because I might miss a deal. And I'm like, seriously, my phone is on do not disturb unless we are in a hard negotiation. And I'm at the point now where when people reach out to me, they're like, hi, are you accepting new clients? Hi, are you right? Because I have been very, very upfront about, I don't work with everyone.
Right.
Right. I don't chase. And I always say, you know what? Professionals attract and amateurs chase. And that is 100% correct. And I always say, like, it's not that I don't work. I do. I work very smart. And, I say yes to me, and I have the non-negotiables. And those are things for my kids, things for me that are just every week. This is what I do. My clients get filled in around it. And I'm still one of the top realtors. I mean, the last 2 years, I've been the number one realtor at my brokerage. And I am at the lake, and I am on holidays.
It's an interesting thing too, because, so many, the amateurs, like you said, they give up their time for money. And a lot of it is so much wheel spinning that they're giving up all their time for not much money. And sort of the more you go into it, the more you realize, if I give up some money, I'll get more time back. And the more time you get back, the more creative you get to be, and the more in the moment and in yourself you get to be, which means the more money you make. So instead of giving up time for money, you give up money for time, and it's all different. Now somebody will say, well, if you don't have any money, you can't do that. I'm like, no, but you can still adopt that mentality where you're not too worried about it. And if you understand that, your entire life, everything you've ever done has worked out one way or another.
Yeah.
It's coming in the future. So.
Yeah. And my big thing is, boundaries over burnout.
Oh, yeah.
And that is, like, I will stand by that forever. Right. And if anybody challenges me on, wow, you're not, listing this and doing this, how are you even going to make it? I'm like, you know what? How did I do it then?
Yeah.
Right. And how have I taught other women? And it's not just real estate agents. It's just women in general that are like feeling like they need to do it all. And they're just like, I'm not enough. Right. And they're people pleasers. And it's like, okay, we need to go back and basically unlearn all the shit that you've learned and deal with some things in order to move forward. And then once you start saying yes to yourself, right? Because people think, oh my God, boundaries. That is, oh, that's scary. I'm scared, right? Like, I need to say no to people. I'm like, how about we flip that and you start saying yes to you? And then everything else just fills in around it.
And you had like a full blown panic attack and quasi mental breakdown.
Totally.
And
I didn't leave the house for almost a year. And
that is the foundation that you've built off from this, the knowledge that it took going into that, and that you had in it, and then coming out of it. That's, the fact that you have the ability to prevent other people from having full blown panic attacks and failure, like just crazy. I mean, that's, people say, what are your credentials? Well, I'll tell you my credentials. School of Hard Knocks, a few of them. But to prevent anyone from having to experience what you experienced, or at least to show them the path that if you're going to go into it, there is a way out of it. Because when you're 100%. In the throes of it, you think that you're there forever.
Yeah. And society is very much, in order to do this, that you got to do this and you got to do this and you got to hustle and you got to grind and you got this and then, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, that is so toxic. That is so toxic. Like hustle culture is basically putting your work and business before anything else in your life. That is fucked up.
Yeah.
Like that is really fucked up. Because if you are not okay, mind, body, and soul, if you can't, when people are like, what do you mean you put yourself first? Like you have kids. And I'm like, okay, but if I am not in a correct frame of mind, I can't help my kids.
That's another society. That's another massive trick from society, right? They say if you put yourself first, you are selfish, and we're not allowed to be selfish.
Yeah.
What they don't understand is you need to put yourself first. You need to be the one that's full, and that way you can give to everybody else. And society twisted that as well. And it's amazing. It's amazing how many times that took place. I mean, let's drop back to the COVID. How many people got vaccinated because they didn't want to kill grandma? And then how many people got vaccinated because they were worried about their own health? Right. Yep. That was the manipulation. That was one of the biggest manipulations that they put out there. Do it for somebody else. Don't do it for yourself.
No, cares about you.
Yeah. You don't need to care about you. You need to care about them. Yeah. Right. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. What's selfish is running yourself into the ground and being of no help
to anyone.
Yeah. That's selfish.
Yes.
And you know what? All you're doing is teaching your kids, because kids learn what they live. And if that's what they see, guess what they're going to do? And it just repeats and it repeats till somebody breaks the cycle. And I call bullshit on anybody who says you can't make like a multi 6-figure income operating the way you do. I'm like, really? Come on over and I'll show you.
That's right. And absolutely.
Right? I mean, you have to put in the work still. I mean, it's not like I just sit here and be like, la da da. I work smart.
Yeah. Yeah. You're one of the hardest working people I know, but you're also living one of the greatest lives. Like you have the opportunity to do that sort of stuff. And it's a beautiful thing because, we come from anyone that's sort of in this realm and in this reality they've got multiple lives that they've lived. And a lot of us came from nothing and created something. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. And I don't just mean money, but I mean like a mindset, a character, a charisma, all that sort of stuff. And when somebody says, easy for you to say, look at what you've got right now, right? It's funny because every single thing that, even conspiracies, it's not like I woke up one day and I was like, well, I'm just going to put this tinfoil hat on and go against everything that ever happened.
Yeah.
I'm not here to be ridiculed. I'm here to ask questions.
Yeah.
And that you get ridiculed for asking questions is absurd. You get ridiculed or you get comments from people that say, look what you've got. It's easy for you to say, look what you've got. When you look back at them and say, I started where you are.
Yeah.
I started where you are. Yeah. And I created what I have because it was necessity, because it was the journey. If you want it, take it. If you don't, don't. But don't rip on other people that are doing the thing that you want to do because you haven't got the balls right now to get up and do it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And there's a lot of people out there that don't know where to start. And this is one of the things that I say, if, every single great athlete has a litany of coaches. So if you want to understand what somebody's doing and you don't have any money, audiobooks, ask questions, Instagram, use Instagram to follow people that are doing something.
Yeah.
There's information absolutely everywhere, but get yourself the information that you need one way or the other.
Totally.
Because success is merely a matter of doing things. And I'm not going to say success because the term success to me was, societal white picket fence, 2.5 kids. And that just led to burnout.
Totally.
Success in anything that you do is waking up and being happy, having an amazing day and going to bed. That's success to me.
And everybody's version is different.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what some people are like, well, to be successful, I'm like, what is success?
Yeah.
To me, success is experiences and time. I always say, I love money, and money allows me to have the experiences that I have. And I would say time is my greatest currency, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what's important to me. So it's like, you really got to get, I feel like people, they don't even know what they really want. So how can you even go out there and try to do anything? The first step is like, you need to get really, really clear on what it is you want.
Yeah. Don't go out there manifesting with a bunch of aloof ideas.
I want a lot of money. Yeah. I want to, well, you just found a quarter on the ground. You got more money. Yeah.
Be specific. Be specific with your manifestations.
Yeah.
But so everything all said and done, it was absolutely awesome to have you on the show.
Yes. Thank you.
And I love your story. And it's something that I'm probably going to revisit in a little bit, like a few months down the road or whatever, because I want to know more.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the most important things that we talk about, all of these things that we're supposed to not allowed to be able to talk about,
Yeah.
I want to talk about these things on a regular basis. I want to talk about things that are going to piss people off, that are going to make people think, that are going to do all that sort of stuff. And to me, it seems weird as a male, but it's one of those things. I feel that we've all been duped into wanting big breasts as a man.
Yeah.
Wanting big breasts as a woman.
Yeah.
The idea of augmentation. I believe the whole thing. I believe the whole thing is this massive scam. And I love to get, I don't want to say the bottom of it, because there is no getting to the bottom of it. We can never figure out why they sexualized breasts in the first place. Who knows why that happened?
Yeah.
And this is the key. And you know me well enough to know that the journey that I'm on is bettering yourself every single day, no matter what you're doing.
100%.
And that, that's what this is. That's what you did. And you're using that experience to help anyone that comes to you
For sure.
to better themselves. Yeah. And that's awesome and admirable. So again, I say thank you for coming on the show. And
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And anyone that wants to connect with Heather even more, she is available, and I will have her link tree posted in the liner notes for this show.
Awesome.
And I think that you're going to simulcast this on your channel as well.
I am.
So to Heather's guests, I say hello from the Mental Mastery Alliance.
This is Adam. Hello. Hello, Adam.
That's fantastic.
And just so everyone knows, Adam, I've been working with Adam for 2 years, and he is my coach. So there. Coaches have coaches. That's how shit works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's not something that I talk about on a regular basis. My clients and all that sort of stuff, I believe in 100% anonymity. So thank you very much for the shout out on that.
Yeah, you better believe it.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And
thank you.
Hey, thank you. And in the infamous words of Red Green, keep your stick on the ice.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast. Stay connected with us directly through the mentalmasteryalliance.com. You can also join the discussion on Instagram at instagram.com/the Mental Mastery Alliance. Let the team know you're listening by using the hashtag TMMA or tagging us at the Mental Mastery Alliance. To have your voice heard on the show, leave a voicemail or send a text to 647-338-1265. Long distance charges may apply. If you love us, leave us a review. If you hate us, you spend your time in weird ways, but also leave a review. Every review on iTunes tickles the algorithm, helping us grow. Until next time, unity over division. This concludes the most surreal portion of your day.
You got it, Pontiac.